Starting around your 30s, you lose about 1% of your muscle mass every single year. And by 60, that quiet subtraction has been running for 3 decades without ever sending you a bill. You didn't feel it happen, nobody warned you. But right now, in your body, a set of changes is unfolding that almost nobody explains properly. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly what's shifting inside you after 60, which changes are inevitable, and which ones research suggests are surprisingly reversible. And there's one organ in your body that behaves in a way that seems to break the rules entirely. It actually gets better at something as you age. I'll tell you which one at the very end. Start with your muscles because they're the loudest signal. The technical name is sarcopenia, which just means muscle loss with age. Here's what's actually happening. Your muscles are made of fibers, and those fibers come in 2 broad types: slow fibers for endurance, fast fibers for power. Aging doesn't take them evenly. It goes after the fast ones first. That's why standing up from a low chair or catching yourself when you stumble gets harder before walking a mile does. You're not losing strength across the board. You're losing your emergency response system. And here's the part that matters more than the muscle itself. Muscle is where most of the sugar from your last meal gets stored. Less muscle means fewer parking spaces for glucose, so more of it stays circulating in your blood. This is one reason insulin sensitivity tends to decline with age. Your muscles aren't just for lifting things. They're a metabolic organ, and they've been quietly shrinking. But that's not even the strangest part. Look at your bones. Most people picture bone as inert scaffolding, something that just sits there. It isn't. Your skeleton is a construction site that never closes. One crew, called osteoclasts, dissolves old bone. Another crew, osteoblasts, lays down new bone. For most of your life, those 2 crews stay roughly matched. After around 50, the demolition crew starts outworking the builders. Not dramatically, just enough that the balance tips year after year. Bone density falls by roughly 1% annually in many adults, and considerably faster in women in the years right after menopause, when estrogen, which had been acting as a brake on the demolition crew, drops sharply. Now here's where it flips. Bone responds to load. Physically pulling on bone through resistance and impact signals the builder cells to show up. Studies have found that weight-bearing and strength training can meaningfully slow and, in some cases, partially reverse bone density loss. Your skeleton is listening to what you do with it this week. Meanwhile, something is changing in your senses that you almost certainly haven't noticed. The lens inside your eye stiffens with age. That's why reading glasses arrive on schedule for nearly everyone. But the lens also yellows. Slowly, subtly, it filters out blue light. 2 things follow. Colors shift, so many older adults genuinely perceive blues as duller. And blue light is the exact wavelength your brain uses to set your internal clock. Less of it reaching the back of your eye means a weaker daily signal telling your body when it's daytime. Research suggests this is one contributor to the fragmented sleep so common after 60. It isn't only the mattress, it's the lens. Thirst does something similar. Your sense of thirst blunts with age. The alarm gets quieter even when the need is the same. At the same time, your kidneys become less efficient at concentrating urine, so you hold onto less water. 2 changes, same direction. Which is why dehydration in older adults often shows up first as confusion or fatigue rather than a dry mouth, the warning light dimmed. Your skin tells the story in a way you can see. Under the surface sits a mesh of collagen and elastin. Think of it as fabric with springs woven through. Collagen production drops roughly 1% per year after your 20s, and the springs lose their snap. But the more consequential change is a thin fat layer beneath the skin that thins out with age. That layer is insulation. Losing it is a large part of why many older adults feel cold in rooms everyone else finds comfortable. It isn't sensitivity, it's missing padding. And your immune system undergoes one of the most underappreciated shifts of all.
There's a small organ behind your breastbone called the thymus. It's the training academy for T cells, the immune cells that learn to recognize specific invaders. Starting in your teens, the thymus begins shrinking and converting to fat. By around 60, very little functional thymus tissue remains. You still have T cells, huge numbers of them, but far fewer newly trained recruits able to learn brand new threats. That's a major reason vaccine responses tend to be weaker later in life, and why an unfamiliar virus hits harder. Your immune system isn't weak, it's experienced but no longer hiring. Here's the most surprising thing, and it's the answer to the question I planted at the start. That thymus story sounds like pure decline. It isn't the whole picture, because your brain is doing something almost nobody expects. For decades, the assumption was that the adult brain simply loses cells and coasts. Processing speed does slow, that's real and well documented, but researchers studying cognition across the lifespan keep finding something else. Crystallized intelligence, your accumulated knowledge, vocabulary, pattern recognition, and judgment built from decades of experience, tends to hold steady and in many people continues improving well into the 70s and beyond. Vocabulary often peaks later in life than at any earlier point. Your brain trades raw speed for something it could never have had at 20, an enormous library of matched patterns. That's why experienced people frequently reach a correct decision faster than faster thinkers do. They're not computing quicker, they've simply seen it before. And the brain keeps building connections in response to novelty and challenge throughout life. The exact limits of adult neuroplasticity are still genuinely debated among researchers. That's an honest, open question, not settled fact. But the broad finding holds. The organ everyone assumes is winding down is the one still actively rewriting itself. That's the part nobody warns you about, not the decline, the trade. If you want to keep decoding how your body actually works, the real mechanisms, not the headlines, subscribing is the easiest way to have the next one find you. And the next one is what your grip strength reveals about how long you'll live, because one simple squeeze predicts more about your future health than almost any other quick test, and the reason why is genuinely strange. One last thing, and it matters. Everything here is educational content about how the human body works. It's not medical advice, and it isn't a substitute for someone who actually knows your history. If you're thinking about changing your diet, your exercise routine, or anything to do with your health, please talk to a doctor or a qualified health professional first. They can see the specifics. I can only explain the mechanism.